What's up, everybody, and welcome to the interview. Today, we've got a great show because we'll be sitting down with Grower Stufferino, the mastermind behind the Mutant Farmer account on Instagram. Introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
My pseudonym is Grower Stufferino. I'm around 30 years old, and I mainly work with cannabis. I grow, smoke, do breeding, write articles about cannabis, and make videos about it. It's my passion. I first tried weed when I was about 12. In my hometown, my friends and I often went to the river, where Siberian ruderalis grew wild. It was an auto-flowering strain with low THC, but a moderate amount of CBD. We would collect fresh buds and brew a drink called managa in my language. When cannabinoids are cooked, they dissolve into fats, so by using milk and condensed milk, you can make a potent product even from weak weed that wouldn't work when smoked. So cannabis has been with me since my teenage years. But back then, I had no idea I would dedicate my life to it. Now, by the way, I use Siberian ruderalis in my work.
What inspired you to work on mutants? Was it curiosity, the desire to improve certain traits of the plant, or just pure chance?
I wanted to participate in a cannabis competition, so I asked an amateur mutant breeder I followed on YouTube if he could share some seeds with me. In exchange, I offered to make a cool competition report, but he refused. I didn't get discouraged and just decided to buy seeds elsewhere, from real professionals, and create my own mutant for the report. Along the way, I got so hooked that I couldn't stop.
What are the most interesting mutations you've encountered? Are there any that are particularly rare or difficult to stabilize?
Every year, new unique phenotypes appear. Right now, I'm focused on stabilizing auto-flowering genetic lines of Freak Show, ABC, AD17, and SWAG, because the community has a high demand for these strains. A D17 and SWA series Gensquin turned out to be more difficult due to a high hermaphroditism rate. I think that's every breeder's worst nightmare. Your plant could be perfect, the best in the population, but unfortunately halfway through flowering, after a stress test, you start seeing your girl covered in bananas.
What does the process of selecting mutants look like? Do you have specific criteria for deciding which plants are worth developing further?
To create my own genetics, I crossed photoperiod mutants with the auto-flowering Lauriter. Since both autoflowering and leaf morphology mutations are recessive traits, the first generation only produced standard photoperiod plants with a slightly faster flowering cycle. The desired plants appeared only in the F2 generation. From each batch, I sowed 300 to 400 seeds and kept only the 4 best plants for further stabilization. It's a bit like gambling. I base my selections on plant structure and organoleptic properties. I like compact plants with moderately dense buds so that future growers have less risk of mold or detection. In terms of smell and stickiness, I prefer highly resinous strains.
What is the most and least enjoyable part of the whole breeding process for you?
The part I enjoy the most is the final result, haha. Like I said, it's my passion. Seeing your population become more stable after 3 years of work is incredibly rewarding. The part I like the least is waiting when I have to store seeds before they're ready to use. That's why I work nonstop. When one line is resting, I start another.
If you could create the perfect mutant, what would it look like and what traits would it have?
I don't think I could create a perfect mutant. Perfection is the enemy of good, and it's too grand a concept. But I definitely want to achieve high stability. And the most important trait? Recognition from growers.
Do you think people in Russia prefer landrace strains and have a more Eastern-style approach to cultivation? Or do you see more influence from the West with American Cali strains?
I haven't lived in Russia for a few years. Due to the difficult political situation, I moved to Georgia. Observing the cannabis communities in both countries, I see that every indoor grower strives for American genetics. It's a trend, but in Russia, the climate makes photoperiod strains practically useless for outdoor growing. That's why many growers take a more European approach. They choose stable, resilient, and high-yielding strains instead of delicate sugar girls with floral aromas.
You mentioned that you run the Zagi.club portal. Can you tell us what people can find there?
Yes, I'm one of the moderators and content creators for Dzagi. It's the largest cannabis community in the CIS region. The portal has been around for over 20 years. You can find absolutely everything about cannabis there. Educational materials, the latest news and research, book translations, grow reports, and practical advice. It's also a place to network, find business partners, or even start your own business. I first joined the forum in 2017 when I was growing my first crop. Now, 8 years later, I help others gain knowledge. I grew as a grower here and learned everything I know. I'm truly grateful to this platform.
Tell us about Zoggy Cup 2024.
Zoggy Cup is an annual competition for grower skills. This year marks the 20th anniversary edition. Everything happens online and completely anonymously. Participants post their grow reports on the forum throughout the year and then can enter the contest. The winner is chosen in 2 stages. A community vote selects the top 10 to 13 growers, then a jury evaluates the finalists and picks 6 winners, 3 in the best indoor category and 3 in best outdoor. There are also additional nominations. The sponsors include well-known brands like Dutch Passion, Greenhouse Seeds/Feeding, Canna, Doctor's Choice, and others. This year's prize pool exceeds $50,000. For every participant, it's a great opportunity to showcase their skills and gain respect from the community.
What differences do you notice in the approach to cannabis between Russia and Georgia?
Cannabis culture in Georgia is still relatively young. The boom happened in 2018 when the political party Gierci, which means cone in Georgian, pushed for decriminalization and the state recognized the right of citizens to consume cannabis. Before 2018, you could be penalized just for having THC in your blood, and even small amounts could lead to harsh prison sentences. Back then, there were only a few grow shops in the entire country. Today, there are around 20 just in the capital. The biggest difference is that in Russia, it's nearly impossible to buy seeds in physical stores, while in Georgia, they're available in every grow shop. Sometimes you can even find Fast Buds packs in regular tobacco shops. Cannabis is openly discussed here. If you see people smoking a joint on the street, you can just join them. Just be open and polite. In Russia, growers and smokers are much more secretive and antisocial. Unfortunately, the strict police system forces them to behave this way.
What are your plans for this year?
Work, work, and more work. Haha. Right now, I'm finishing another cycle, and in April, I'll release a fast photo period version of Freak Show. In the summer, I plan to create a feminized auto-flowering version of ABC, and in the fall, an auto-fem freak show. Throughout the year, I also plan to release several drops of my regular auto-flowering freak show and bastard strains with Siberian ruderalis genetics. Well, you know why this is so important to me. Through this strain, I want to share a piece of myself, my home region, and pay my respects to the plant that made me who I am.
Have you ever had any legal issues related to your work?
Fortunately, I've never had legal issues related to cannabis. Of course, when I lived in Russia, I almost got caught a couple of times, but I always managed to ditch my weed in the nearest bushes in time. A smoker must always be alert. Always. I wish every cannabis lover never falls into the hands of Babylon's servants.
Have you ever grown an albino strain? If so, were you able to take it through the entire growth cycle?
I haven't had the chance to work with a true albino strain yet. So far, I've only come across variegated plants, but unfortunately, all of them were hermaphrodites, so I didn't include them in further breeding.
If you had to give 3 pieces of advice to a grower who wants to focus exclusively on mutants, what would they be?
1. If you're interested in mutants, don't be biased. There's a myth that these plants are weak, have no aroma, and don't work. That's nonsense. Treat them like any other plant, and they'll reward you. 2. Preserve genetics and share them. If you can take a clone, do it and give it to a trusted person. Spread this key to safe cultivation because for someone, This plant's unusual appearance might be a legal lifesaver. Third, plant flowers and medicinal herbs around your grow. It's not just good for cultivation, it's also aesthetically amazing. Your garden will look beautiful, and you'll enjoy not only great buds, but also a wonderful environment.